The other day, you raised the question about the meditative like experience dawning for us in the middle of discussion. And we were talking about whether you can get there, so to speak, with the intellect, with thinking. And and kind of what came out of our discussion were two things that sort of seem contradictory. Right? The one thing is that, as I said, you can't think your way to enlightenment. If you could, then grad schools would be full of awakened Buddhas. On the other hand, we can't deny our own experience. And sometimes when you're reading the book of philosophy, when you're having the deep discussion, then something happens, and we know the bulb lights up. Now, the fact of the matter is that is a valid and a recognized path of awakening. In the tradition, as laid out in the Bhagavad Gita, there's four main paths of awakening, what's called yogas, four ways of conscious union with our own boundless ultimate nature. Yoga meaning union or means of union. One of them is karma yoga, the yoga of action. And actually, we were talking about that too. Sometimes when you're really plugged in to playing your piano, doing your sport, whatever it is, it happens there. And the Bhagavad Gita, by the way, gives the formula for karma yoga, the yoga of action. How does just action, regular garden variety of action, become enlightening action? And the answer is perform action without attachment to the fruit of the action. If you can really do that, where you're just right. I mean, and we experience that when we're really plugged into playing the concerto. All we're doing is we're playing the concerto. We don't have any bandwidth left for, well, how is the audience going to receive this, and what am I getting paid for the gig, or any of that. We're just doing it to do it. Karma yoga. Another is bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion. And hopefully everyone's experienced this. Sometimes you just look into the eyes of your beloved, whether it's your beloved husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend or cat or oak tree, Bill, right? When you look at Bill's incredible photographs of oak trees, you know that he's just opened his heart with pure devotion to these oak trees. The oak trees inspire devotion in him. So it can be anything. It can be God, if that works for you. Yesterday was Wednesday. It's the day I sing with the gospel choir, and man, we're singing about let us magnify the Lord. I'm just sitting there with a big smile on my face. And every once in a while I wonder, boy, do these people all hear what they're saying? Are they all getting this? Because I'm just sitting there going, this is all the meditation I need today. Right? That it works. It works. If you're all of these have a way of doing them wrong. Right? Karma yoga of action, you can get so caught up in doing the action and looking for the result and all that, then it doesn't work. Right? Bhakti, devotion, you can get caught up in emotionality, where it's just emotion rather than the transcendence. Right? You may go through emotion, out the other side of emotion into transcendence. Right? Which happens with romantic love. People think of romantic love as this big whipping up, all this intensity of emotion. And at certain, points along the path of the romance can be that. But ultimately, it's that fire hose thing that can't be sustained forever. Fortunately, it doesn't have to. At some point, the fire hose just opens out into the ocean, and it's just completely easy. And just there's you, there's your beloved, and just Raja Yoga, the royal yoga, Raja, right? Like king, Maharaja, great king. What is Raja Yoga? Meditation. Meditation. So there's some special status given among even all the four yogas, special status given, it's always a good idea to meditate. And the other one, Jnana Yoga, the yoga of wisdom, knowledge, understanding. Right? Now, that doesn't just mean accumulating knowledge. Doesn't mean accumulating information. Information is going to tend to keep us in form. Right? But again, we can go through information, through the intellectual understanding, through the discussion. At a certain point, we come out the other end of it. If you look at Plato's work and you see what Socrates was up to, and Socrates, like total Zen master of ancient Athens, right? He was this cranky, irascible old man, total eccentric character, who, what did he do? He hung around, he went through the streets of Athens, and Athens was just, the pinnacle of all the sciences at that time, of the arts and music and sculpture and political science and military science and all that. And what did Socrates do, as recorded by his student Plato? He engaged all these men who were at the top of their particular discipline and said, okay, I've been told you're the wisest, you're the guy, when you're the man of sculpture, military science, to explain to me your knowledge. You know what's what. You are wise. Explain. And what he would do is just keep asking questions. Keep asking questions, keep asking questions, right? Socratic method. Keep asking questions until he would draw the guy out to the edge of his own understanding, bring him to the end of it, like, well, what's the basis? Okay, so that's it, but what's the basis of that? What's the basis of that? And finally he would get him to the point where the guy is just like looking into the void and realizing that there's something that he's just accumulated a bunch of facts or a bunch of knowledge, but a bunch of parts, but doesn't have the whole, doesn't have the space, doesn't have the open sky of beingness, awareness within which it all takes place. And then we have the examples of ancient and modern enlightened sages who, that's the main way that they work. Ramana Maharshi in the 20th century was famous for engaging his students in what he called Atma Vihara, self-inquiry. You could start by saying, well, tell me something, tell me anything. And they say, oh, well, I got here today on a bus. They say, okay, so we know about the bus. Tell me about this I that rode on the bus, right? And soon, okay, well, who is that? Who's that? And who's had this experience? Who or what is, he keeps pushing back. The other great example of the 20th century that I, often quote fondly, Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, who would just ruthlessly, whatever people asked him, he would just cut it back. Late in his career of where people would all just come to his little apartment in Bombay, and he would just walk them through it until they're just all just standing on the cliff looking into the abyss. And late in his career, he got to a point where he wouldn't let anyone that used the word I. As soon as they use the word I, it's like they started to say, "Well, I came here on the bus." They'd say, "Well, I," and he'd stop them right there. What do you mean I? Bring that I into the witness box. Let's see him. So that's a grand tradition. Now, and when you read the description in the Bhagavad Gita, it describes, well, the bhakti yogi, right, the person who practices devotion does this, and the karma yogi does this. The reality is, I think we all do some of each, right? Just in the course of living our lives, we all have to do some karma, right? Some action. May as well make a yoga out of it. Feel out, how can I do this in such a way that I'm not caught up in thinking about the result all the time, that I'm just in the middle of doing it. Right? Okay, I'm feeling this emotion for my spouse or my whatever. How can I see through that all the way to the beyond the bounds? Just how can I relax into that being expansive, liberating, right? If I'm sitting there in the gospel chorus singing these songs about, right, is it getting me more caught up in some particular Christian doctrine or some doctrine, or is it just blowing things open for me? Then it's a yoga. Then it's bhakti yoga. It's not just bhakti, right? And so it's the same with all of those. Is this landing? Are you all hearing this? Good. Any thoughts about any of this? Yeah, Bill?
Uh, a small refinement to the devotional path of oak trees, which
Yes.
could translate to just about anything, is that following something, doing an action that is joyful,
Yes.
that brings you joy and satisfaction without any expectation of a result,
Yes.
leads you into that process of yoga. It
Yes.
joins you with the essence of whatever it is you're following or devoted to, and transcends the object. It's you realize that thing that you love is also a thing that's in you. It's reflecting that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a thing that's in you. It's a thing that is you, and it's not a thing. It's our own nature. It's the same beingness, which, right, it's the old, right, I am that with a capital T, you are that, all this is nothing but
Exactly.
that alone is, and we meet on the level of that, right?
But
You meet the oak tree on the level of that, and the result is the rest of us get to enjoy your beautiful photographs. And if you're all the time you're thinking, oh, is this photograph going to work in my next book? And is this going to, am I going to sell a lot of prints? All that, then it doesn't work.
exactly.
Yeah, 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 exactly right. But yeah, I like the way you said that. It has to transcend the object, transcends the object. You know,
Yeah.
I know some people will like look at my mantle and go, yeah, this guy's got a lot of graven images there. There's the Buddha, there's Shiva, and all that. But they're there. But I know they're all there to transcend the object. They're all there as launching pads. They're all forms, particular forms that I find to be, yeah. Or okay, who you got there, Jacob? Who was that?
Homer.
Homer.
Homer,
Yeah, good, good. Yeah,
my
whatever.
writing guru.
You're sure. So whatever forms work for you as a launching pad into transcending the form into the formless.
Can I ask Bill a question just further that, Bill? Would that be akin for me saying, I love writing, I love writing, and I do love producing things, but more than that, I love the freedom of the state of creating. The the book or the article or whatever is the artifact, and that's satisfying. But when I really look at it, it's that the joyousness, like you were saying, of being in that strata, that level of art. And sometimes it might read as crazy to someone else, but um, I don't know if that's akin to what you were saying, pointing to.
Yeah, the creative process is itself a form of yoga.
Yeah.
You get into the flow of creating, and you're essentially in a meditative state.
Mm.
Yeah. 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 And then so sometimes the artifact, the final product, the thing that's produced is just it's just a pretext. It's just an excuse to be out there in the bayou shooting those photos or
That
whatever you do.
I used to say all the time that the reason I went out was not so much to take photographs, but it was the process.
Yeah.
Being out in nature around old trees was in and of itself the reward for me.
Yeah.
And I think
Sometimes.
there's something childlike about that in a way, in a really beautiful way. When you watch children playing, when they're really free, they don't stop and say, all right, so what are we getting to here? What is the result we want from this play thing?
Right.
They're in the play,
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the
the
difference.
celebration.
It's the difference between marching and dancing,
Mm.
right? Marching is this discipline thing in order to get somewhere. Dancing is you're still moving your legs and arms, but you're going nowhere joyfully. You're moving for the joy of moving, not for the sake of getting somewhere. Yeah. Hmm. And more, again, meditation is the Raja Yoga. It's everything. It makes all the other yogas work better, right?
Yes.
It makes all because Bill, I'm sure there's other people who were photography students who were contemporaries of yours and so forth who may not have gotten to that. They were got too caught up in just the thing and the product and all that. But it's your meditation practice from an early age that help you recognize, oh yeah, here I am. I'm in the beingness again. Only instead of in the beingness sitting on a cushion with my eyes closed, I'm in the beingness with my large format camera and lining up and checking where the sun is.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and not everyone gets that. So it's like the old Coke, the old slogan, was things go better with Coke, right? Things go better with meditation, whatever they are. It all works better. And same thing with even like therapeutic things, you know, therapy, counseling, family counseling, and or whatever psychotherapy. Often, there's times in people's lives where it may be very appropriate or needful to have something like that. Um, but it works better. It works better if it's coupled with meditation. I mean, I can testify to that from my own experience and from observing other people. You can hear what the therapist is trying to tell you. And the therapist can see it more clearly if they're meditating. Good. Anything else? Yeah, Peter?
So it's funny because I'm getting something that I haven't, like, hasn't been mentioned here. this sense of all of the yogas and stuff, just a unity that exists through all of them, that and through all things, that there is no separation, or that
Yeah.
this is any different than that, that all of the activities, anything that you do is this leads to the same, I don't want to say leads to the same, but is of the same nature, basically.
Right.
And
It,
I don't know what
it recognizes that what was that nature all along, that there was never any separation.
there was never right.
How
Exactly.
could the wave ever be separate from the ocean? Waves cannot exist
Right.
separate from the ocean, and yet we went through how much of our lives imagining that we were a separate entity, right? Imagining that we were a separate wave. So this word yoga, you're absolutely right. This word yoga, this idea of uniting, it's a provisional concept. It's a concept from the point of view of being caught up in the illusion of separateness. We call it yoga. We call it
Okay.
uniting. Yeah, absolutely
Got
right.
it. Okay.
Right. And that's why, but that's where most people are most of the time. So it's necessary. It's necessary. But then, and that's why in the traditions of Indian philosophy, you've got these different philosophies that spell the stuff out at different levels. At the penthouse level, right, the higher level than yoga philosophy is Advaita philosophy. Advaita, non-dual. So there's no, we don't talk about union, we don't talk about uniting. Advaita, non-duality, there was never two. Never separateness. That's what Advaita means. Not two.
Non-dual.
Non-dual. Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. You bet. Thank you. I mentioned the other day that when I told the story about Shankara and his students walking on the ghats by the side of the Ganges and seeing the old man, the old pundit, like on the brink of death. He was so old and decrepit, lecturing some students on the intricacies of Sanskrit grammar, and Shankara, who was in fact the father of the Advaita philosophy, saw that this guy was he was a guy that was not getting the juice. He was caught up in the knowledge for the knowledge, and the story is that Shankara said to him, "Oh, you fool! You poor fool!" Right? Very compassionate. You poor fool, on the brink of death. As death approaches, the rules of grammar ain't going to save you. Right? So what you do, and he put it in bhakti terms, in that situation. Very often, it's interesting. People who's too caught up in the intellect, they may need bhakti as the antidote. People who are too caught up in just devotion, the emotionality, may need some clear-eyed understanding, some jnana. Interesting how that works. People who are too caught up in karma, I'm just seeing this right now as I'm saying it. People who are too caught up in karma and activity, they need Raja yoga, they need meditation. And people who are too caught up in Raja, just sitting around meditating all the time, everything will be fine. They need to get off their asses and do some work, do some karma yoga. I never saw that symmetry before. That's nice. See, this stuff just keeps getting deeper. It's so great. So the story is, the beautiful poem that came out of Shankara, according to the story. What he said was, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Right? Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja means praise. Bhaja Govindam, praise the Lord, right? Open yourself in devotion. Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, you poor fool. I can remember the chords I said. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Samprapte sanihite kale, nahi nahi rakshati dukrin karane. Samprapte sanihite kale, nahi nahi rakshati dukrin karane. So, samprapte sanihite kale, as death approaches. And then comes actually my favorite part. Nahi nahi. No way, no way. It's almost the same in Sanskrit and English. Nahi nahi, no, never, not gonna happen, not gonna happen. Right? All those negatives in all these languages, right? Spanish, Italian, German, English, Sanskrit. N is nope, not nahi nahi, no way. Nahi nahi rakshati dukrin karane. No way, the rules of grammar are going to save you. In this case, rules of grammar standing for, bunch of information, thinking you got it, you got this, you got things taken care of because my mother was a grammar Nazi. This is how I wound up being an English teacher, I think. She was a grammar Nazi, but if you know people who are like, you hear them say, I can't stand it when people say very unique, right? It drives me crazy when they put the apostrophe in the wrong place and so forth. 33 years as an English teacher, you can't live that way or you will go crazy, right? And the thing is that people who fall into that grammar Nazi point of way of being, they generally think that the rules of grammar and the rules of English and pronunciation and all that are somehow, they haven't thought it through because it's clearly absurd once you think it through, but it's as if they think those things were inscribed in rock by the finger of God. Right? That those rules are absolute. How did those rules get to be the rules, quote unquote? Did someone sit down at the beginning of time and go, okay, we're going to lay out the rules here of this language? No, it all evolves, and it all evolves from how people speak. And when people speak a new way long enough, then that becomes the rule. And what I did, actually, I had this conversation with my mom a couple of weeks before she died. She was dying of cancer, and somehow this came up one day, and I think she was talking about the word phenomena, right? Phenomena is the plural, phenomenon is the singular. I can't stand it when people say this phenomena, right? Well, I'm not fond of it, and I won't write it. I won't write this phenomena. But I said to her, how about this agenda? Okay, this agenda will be appropriate for the meeting. Any problem with that? No problem for that. Well, agenda also, just like phenomena, it's a Greek plural. The singular is agendum. Agendum means items on the list. Then agenda meant all the items on the list. But it came to be, through enough people saying it that way, came to be treated as a singular word. Right? So it's all just in flux. It's all relative. You can, and my mom heard it and she got it. And I saw this deep relaxation on her face. Right? That she was no longer, after spending a lifetime policing everyone else's language, right? As the grammar Nazi on patrol, she could relax about that. And she had a friend. Her friend was named Brooke, who was like her fellow grammar Nazi, and they would, when they would get together, they would commiserate about how everyone was destroying the language. And she said to me, "Would you explain this to Brooke?" It was so sweet. She wanted her friend to experience that same sense of liberation.